What you are about to see is a series of real cases, recorded in articles and lawsuits, of sexual abuse cover-up at Planned Parenthood. They include civil lawsuits, criminal cases, and health department reports. These stories are tragic and heartbreaking, but what is even more devastating is that they show a systemic pattern of behavior at Planned Parenthood, who claims that sexual assault victims come to its facilities on a daily basis.
And we see this at Planned Parenthood every day. We treat women who are survivors of sexual assault, of domestic violence. This is not a new issue. I think what's new is finally people are talking about it out in the open.
The following is how Planned Parenthood treats these sexual abuse victims.
Washington State, 2017. George Savannah repeatedly raped his daughter and impregnated her when she was 14, 16, and 17 years old. Each time she became pregnant, he took her to Planned Parenthood and forced her to get an abortion to cover up his crimes. One reason Savannah was able to get away with his sexual abuse is because Planned Parenthood repeatedly failed to report the suspicious incidents to authorities. After her abortions at Planned Parenthood, Savannah continued to rape her several times a week for 7 horrific years.
Colorado, 2012. A 13-year-old girl became pregnant by her stepfather, Timothy David Smith, who had been sexually abusing her for 7 years. He brought her to Planned Parenthood to cover up his crime. Not one of the 4 staffers she interacted with bothered to inquire about the circumstances of her pregnancy or even verified her relationship with Smith. One employee even admitted in a deposition that, quote, being 13 and pregnant alone is not a red flag of possible abuse.
Ohio, 2004. A 14-year-old girl was driven to Planned Parenthood by her 21-year-old soccer coach, John Haller, who got her pregnant and sought an abortion. Haller then passed himself off as the girl's stepbrother in order to pay for the abortion. The girl's parents sued Planned Parenthood for failing to obtain parental consent, failing to give informed consent to their daughter, and failing to report suspected abuse.
Arizona, 2002, the court found Planned Parenthood negligent for failing to report an abortion performed on a 12-year-old child in foster care who had been sexually abused by her 23-year-old foster brother. Planned Parenthood did not notify Child Protective Services nor the girl's foster parents. The failure to report led to 6 more months of sexual abuse, resulting in a second abortion at Planned Parenthood.
California, 2010. Edgar Ramirez raped his 13-year-old daughter and then brought her to Planned Parenthood for an abortion. Rather than reporting possible abuse because a 13-year-old was involved, the abortionist simply advised the victim not to have sex for 3 weeks after her abortion. After a few more months, Ramirez got his daughter pregnant again and took her to Planned Parenthood for another abortion, after which the abortionist implanted an IUD to prevent additional pregnancies. But again, there was no indication that Planned Parenthood reported any suspicion of abuse to authorities.
Ohio, 2004. 16-year-old Denise arrived at a Planned Parenthood facility, pregnant by her own father, who had been forcing her to share his bed for 3 years. Denise told the Planned Parenthood staff about the rape, but they ignored her pleas for help and refused to comply with Ohio's mandatory reporting law. They gave her the abortion and sent her back into her abusive situation.
Arizona, 2014. A Planned Parenthood counselor intentionally miscoded a sexual assault as a consensual encounter to avoid the hassle of reporting it to authorities, months before other victims of the same sexual predator came forward. In 2013, Pennsylvania Department of Health inspectors conducted an annual survey of a Philadelphia Planned Parenthood and discovered that despite the fact that some girls it saw admitted to being sexually active since the ages of 11 and 12, in at least 6 instances, Planned Parenthood did not inquire about the possibility of sexual abuse, nor did staff report the cases to authorities, as required by law.